One day, Duncan was sitting on a siding feeling very grumpy. "It's not fair," he complained. "Everyone else gets a break and I don't. I get no respect on Sodor." Then Skarloey chuffed in. "Cheer up, Duncan," said Skarloey. Cheer up? Why would I cheer up? If everyone else gets a break and I don't, like I have no respect here. I deserve more respect." "Well, Duncan," laughed Skarloey, "maybe you don't get a break is because you grumble a lot. That's why you get all these extra work. So I would suggest you to change your attitude." And Skarloey chuffed away. "Come on, Duncan," said his driver. "We got some passengers to pull." "Of course I have work to do. I get no break," he said crossly. Duncan kept on grumbling all along the countryside. "This isn't fair. This isn't fair. I have all these extra work. I don't get a break," he huffed to himself. At last, Duncan arrived at the station. The passengers on the platform are very excited. Duncan didn't like the happy passengers. "Bah! Of course, it's not fair how all these passengers are happy and I'm not." Then Duncan snorted away. Then Duncan saw Rheneas waiting at a junction. You again? It's not fair that you guys get a break and I don't." Rheneas was very cross. "Quiet, Duncan, okay? I'm tired of you grumbling all the time, alright? Maybe if you would stop grumbling, then maybe you would get a break." I'm never gonna stop, okay? Because I don't like to do this work. It's too much for me," said Duncan crossly. Then he rolled away. At last, Duncan was finished taking his passengers. He parked the coaches on the side. "Come on, Duncan," said his driver. "We have some loads to pick up and drop off to Thomas. Thomas is already waiting at the wharf for you." All this extra work," said Duncan crossly. "Can you just give me a break for once, please?" Now, said his driver. "Enough grumbling, and let's just get the job done." Then Duncan rolled away. At last, Duncan chuffed into the wharf where Thomas was waiting. "Hello, Duncan," said Thomas. "How are you?" "Pah, don't ask me how I am," said Duncan crossly. "You see how I am. I have to do all this extra work, and I don't like it. I get no break. This is just nonsense." "No, Duncan," laughed Thomas. "Anyone who's nonsense here is you." Duncan was speechless. Later, Duncan arrived to another junction. Peter Sam was there. "Cheer up, Duncan," said Peter Sam. "The more you grumble, the more work you get." "Nonsense," said Duncan crossly. "I can grumble if I want to because I have extra work to do, and I don't like doing this extra work." Peter Sam was cross. "You know, Duncan, I'm tired of your grumpy attitude, okay? I don't have all day for this. If you want to have a break, then maybe you should change your attitude." Then Peter Sam puffed crossly away. Later, Duncan arrived to a siding where Sir Topham Hatt was waiting. Sir Topham Hatt spoke severely to Duncan. "Well, Duncan, I'm very disappointed in you because I've been hearing that you've been grumbling way too much. And not only that, you made other engines grumpy. I would have been happy to give you a break, but since you've been grumpy way too much, that's why I'm not giving you one." Now Duncan really was worried. "Please, sir, I'm sorry, sir. I promise I will change my attitude. Please." "Very well, Duncan," said Sir Topham Hatt. "But first, please go do your jobs and then apologize to all the engines who you've been giving attitudes to." "Yes, sir, will do, and I will stop grumbling." First, Duncan apologized to Rheneas at a junction. "Rheneas, I'm sorry for being rude to you. I was just having a bad day. Can you please forgive me?" Rheneas smiled. "Of course I forgave you, Duncan. Even though you're grumpy, you're still a really useful engine." "Thank you, Rheneas," said Duncan, and then he chuffed away. Then Duncan got stuck behind Rusty, who was struggling up the hill. Hurry up! What's the holdup?" he said crossly. Rusty was trying to get up the hill, but his cars were too heavy. Duncan almost lost his temper, and then he remembered what Sir Topham Hatt said. I must not be grumpy, I must not be grumpy, he huffed to himself. So Duncan changed his attitude and decided to help Rusty. Don't worry, Rusty, I'll help you. Thank you, Duncan, said Rusty. Then Duncan pushed Rusty up the hill. Later, Duncan saw Peter Sam at a junction. Peter Sam, I'm sorry I was rude to you yesterday. I was having a bad day. Can you please forgive me? Of course I forgive you, said Peter Sam happily. Even though you're grumpy, you're still very useful. Thank you, Peter Sam, said Duncan, and he chuffed away. Then Duncan found Skarloey. Skarloey, I'm sorry I was rude to you. You were right. I will get no break if I grumble too much. Skarloey smiled. Hakuna Matata, Duncan. At least you're still very useful. And thank you for taking my advice. At last, Duncan chuffed up to the wharf. Then Thomas chuffed in. Hello, Thomas. I'm sorry for giving you an attitude. I was just having a bad day. Hakuna Matata, Duncan. At least you changed your attitude, and I'm happy about that. Thank you, Thomas, said Duncan happily. Later, Duncan crawled home where Sir Topham Hatt was waiting again. Duncan, said Sir Topham Hatt, I am very proud of you. You changed your attitude, you got the jobs done on time, and you apologized to all the engines. And not only that, you helped Rusty up the hill when he was struggling. You should be proud of yourself. And for this, you can have your rest of the day off. Duncan smiled his biggest smile. Thank you, sir, said Duncan. He could not have felt any happier.